Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's start by picturing this scene. Ancient Savatthi, bustling, full of life, and right in the middle of it all, there's this figure, Chattapāṇi. A lay follower, seems quiet, devoted, but he's much more than meets the eye. Deeply learned, they called him a Tipitaka master of the scriptures, and remarkably, an Anāgāmī, a non-returner, very advanced. So imagine Chattapāṇi. He's sitting, listening to the teacher, deep focus, and then suddenly the door opens, and in walks King Pasenadi of Kosala, a powerful king. This creates an instant, well, a real dilemma, doesn't it? He's sitting before the supreme king, the teacher. Does he stand for this regional king? So what we're really digging into today is this whole story, and it's about more than just manners or who stands for whom. We're going to explore how this moment and everything that unfolds from it actually reveals something profound about knowledge itself. How it goes from just being stuff, information to actual wisdom, something that benefits you, and how this whole interaction leads to this beautiful metaphor about, well, fragrance of understanding.
Yeah, Chattapāṇi is fascinating because he's both things at once, Tipitaka and Agami. So Tipitaka means he literally held the Tipitaka, the three baskets of teachings, in his memory. An incredible feat, really. And then Agami, non-returner. That means he'd reached a really high stage of spiritual attainment. He'd overcome some major defilements. And when you look at his practice, like the Upasatha vows, people take celibacy, 1 meal a day, things like that. For Anāgāmī, those things are just natural. They're baked into their way of being because of where they are spiritually. So he didn't need to formally take those vows like others might. He was already living the heart of them. It wasn't just rules. It was who he was.
Right, so this incredibly learned, deeply practiced man is just absorbed, listening to the teacher. King comes in. Chattapāṇi has this split second. Stand up, stay seated. And his thinking is, okay, I'm here with the Supreme King, standing for a regional king now. That would actually be disrespectful to the teacher. So he decides not to stand, even though, he probably guessed the king wouldn't like it. What does that tell us about his priorities? It's not just about social rules.
Exactly. It shows his clarity. The source even mentions that, wise persons wouldn't actually get upset about something like that if someone didn't stand when a more senior person was present.
Wait.
But King Pasenadi, well, he does get angry. He sees Chattapāṇi stay seated, and he's visibly irritated. Sits down, fuming a bit. So you immediately see that tension between, worldly power and spiritual understanding.
And the teacher's reaction is just brilliant. He sees the king's upset, but instead of getting involved in the etiquette argument, he just starts praising Chattapāṇi right there to the king. Calls him wise, one who has seen the Dhamma, Tipitaka, skilled in welfare.
And the effect is immediate. The text says the king's heart just softened right then and there. It's amazing, isn't it? How the teacher just skillfully redirects the whole situation by highlighting Chattapāṇi's virtues. The king's perspective shifts from feeling slighted to actually understanding who this person is.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. Another day. The king is looking out from his palace, sees Chattapāṇi walking past. He's finished his meal, got his umbrella up, wearing sandals. The king calls him over. And this time, Chattapāṇi, before approaching the king, he takes off his sandals, lowers his umbrella, shows respect. So the king asks him, sort of like, aha, why take off the sandals now, finally recognizing I'm the king? And Chattapāṇi says, oh, I always knew your authority, great king. Then the king brings it up. Okay, so why didn't you stand up the other day when I came to see the teacher?
And Chattapāṇi just calmly repeats his reasoning. Same logic as before. Great king, I was sitting in the presence of the Supreme King. To stand for a regional king then would have shown disrespect to the teacher. That's why I didn't stand. And the king, well, having heard the teacher's praise before, he gets it now. He accepts the explanation. You can tell he's actually impressed.
Impressed is right, because the next thing the king does is ask Chattapāṇi to teach the Dhamma in the palace. Like, okay, you're clearly wise, you know the scriptures, come teach us. It's a significant invitation.
But Chattapāṇi says no. Politely, of course. He explains something like, a royal house is greatly fault-ridden. Basically, palace life is complicated, full of potential pitfalls, and conduct there, good or bad, has serious weight. He suggests the king invite a monk instead, which is, again, pretty wise, right? Knowing the right context for teaching. And the king accepts that too. He understands.
So the king doesn't give up on getting teaching in the palace. He goes to the teacher next, asks the teacher and maybe 500 monks to come regularly and teach his queens, Malika and Vasavakatiya. But the teacher also declines, explaining that Buddhas don't really do fixed regular visits like that. Instead, the teacher appoints Elder Ananda for the job. And this whole sequence, Chattapāṇi's refusal, the teacher's refusal, it all kind of sets the stage, doesn't it? for the real lesson here.
Exactly. So Elder Ananda starts going to the palace regularly to teach the two queens, and right away there's this stark contrast. Queen Malika, she's diligent, she listens, she learns, she recites, she really commits the teachings to memory. But Queen Vasapakatiya, who interestingly is mentioned as being related to the teacher's family, she just doesn't. She doesn't learn diligently, doesn't recite, doesn't seem to commit it to memory, not engaged in the same way at all.
Okay. So Ananda reports this back to the teacher.
Yes. The teacher asks Ananda how the teaching is going, are the lay followers learning, who's putting in the effort? And Ananda confirms Malika is doing great, but Vasapakatiya, not so much.
And this difference is what prompts the teacher's core teaching here, using those verses.
Precisely. The teacher uses this situation to deliver a really powerful message with these two famous verses, these gathas. The first one goes something like, just as a beautiful flower, colorful but without fragrance, so too are well-spoken words, fruitless for one who does not act upon them.
Okay, let's unpack that. Well-spoken words. That means the Dhamma, the teachings themselves, right? The Tipitaka that Chattapāṇi knew so well. So if you just hear them or even know them intellectually, but you don't listen properly, don't grasp them, don't practice them, they're like a gorgeous flower, looks amazing, great color, perfect shape, but no scent.
Exactly. The source even mentions specific flowers, like the Palapadaka, that look nice but have no smell. The knowledge is just ornamental. It's fruitless because it doesn't produce that inner quality, that fragrance of real understanding or lead to practice. It stays external.
Right. It lacks impact. It's just decoration.
But then comes the second verse, the contrast. Just as a beautiful flower, colorful and fragrant, so too are well-spoken words, fruitful for one who acts well upon them.
Okay, so this is the flip side. If you do engage diligently, listen, grasp, recite, reflect, and crucially, act on the teachings,
then those same well-spoken words, the Dhamma, become like a flower that's both beautiful and fragrant. Think of jasmine or water lilies, the Kampaka or Lupula mentioned. That knowledge becomes fruitful. It brings real benefit, real reward. It develops that internal fragrance of understanding, retention, and actual transformation through practice. It changes you.
Wow. That's a powerful metaphor. Knowledge isn't just about acquiring it, it's about embodying it, letting it perfume your actions.
That's the essence. And the story concludes by saying that after hearing this teaching, many people in the audience actually attained significant spiritual progress, like stream entry, that first taste of liberation. So the discourse clearly had a huge impact. It really resonated.
So wrapping this up, this whole journey, starting with Chattapāṇi's quiet defiance, the king's reactions, the queen's different approaches to learning it, all points to this central idea. True value isn't just in having knowledge. It's not passive.
Right. It's about actively engaging with it, internalizing it, applying it.
Otherwise, it's just that beautiful flower with no scent. Looks nice, but ultimately doesn't offer its true potential.
And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About our own learning. All the things we read, listen to, study. Are we just collecting information? Or are we letting it soak in, change us, guide our actions? Are we cultivating fragrant flowers?
Yeah, think about all the information hitting us daily. Articles, books, talks like this one, even our own notes. How can you make sure that what you take in isn't just becoming a colorful, maybe even impressive, but ultimately scentless bloom in your mind? How do you ensure it carries that real fragrance of understanding, something that leads to meaningful action in your life, something to ponder?